funding source for them. I'm thinking of Opelousas, Louisiana. Anyone been to Opelousas?
Been to New Orleans.
What?
Been to New Orleans.
So from Baton Rouge, it's west about 40 minutes. And when I first went down there, they had this crummy old building, and across the street they wanted to build some showers, and that was their project. And I looked at it and said, guys, I appreciate your heart, but that's a crummy project. Who wants to walk around across the street to go to the bathroom? You need everything together in one building, and it needs to be a little bigger and a little cleaner. And they said, okay, let's do that. And they did it. And then they did another building, and then they've done another building, and we've been the majority funder in the last two of these buildings. And the Federal Home Loan Bank came out to our last ribbon cutting ceremony, and they were thrilled that they were the majority funder. I always thought they didn't want to be the big funder, but it turns out that they're involved in a lot of, there's this funding source called low-income housing tax credits, builds a lot of public housing, and low-income housing tax credit will pay 85% of the project cost. So when they're on a project, it's a $50 million project, they got a little, they're nobody funder in that stream, so they don't get asked to the podium to speak. And now they show up here and they get on the podium and speak. So they were happy to be bragging about this. So this is just showing you a bigger project. But on a little project, on a renovation project, no funder wants to be a sugar daddy. And what I mean by that, no one wants to pay 100% of your project. They want to see that you have some skin in the game. So there's a couple ways we show skin in the game. First off, let's say you need to do some renovation to your building. Well, your building probably has classrooms and offices in it, correct? Well, their dollars can't go towards that part of the building. But what we can show is that your dollars are going towards that part of the building, and your investment in the project is that part that they aren't going to pay anyway. So we've done a lot of renovation projects where the grant paid 100% of the housing renovation costs. So on smaller projects, there's a lot more ways to finagle this to be a higher percentage of the cost. Obviously, if it's a $20 million project, and we've done a few, we're going to be a small percentage of what that is. I think Helping Up Mission in Baltimore did like a $40 million building. We got them a couple $1 million, but it took a lot more. I think the first donor gave $15 million, so they had a good start. And then Mobile Loaves and Fishes in Austin, Texas, Michael Dell gave them $36 million for their third phase to start, so they had some good jump there. I see a question or something stirring in some folks' eyes.
All right, it was me.
I feel like we're at a recovery meeting. I'm Tia, and I'm addicted to buildings.
I was actually thinking back on some of the prerequisites where I saw, like, definitely they like to see nonprofit. We are a 501c3 organization. We also own a building that is a for-profit, so a nonprofit that owns a for-profit, where individuals do pay rent. But, I mean, we do kind of keep those, it's like a separate, but it does kind of, it complements, so our property is low income, and so I guess we can, I don't know if that would be something that we can demonstrate as we do show.
So the property over here is low income, but it's for profit.
Correct.
So what could we do where you lease the building from them for 20 years?
What, I'm sorry, repeat that.
You do a lease, the nonprofit lease the building for 20 years, and we show you as the owner of the building and the project through the lease, and then we can do the renovation that way to get those nonprofit points.
Okay. Because Ed actually just said, like, I mean, I like to say he's the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker, but he actually does everything, being the founder, but he's actually just like did self-renovation on the entire thing. I don't know. I mean, do we want to do that again? I don't know. So I'm sure there's a way. Not trying to, keep it from not being a way.
Sure. And the question you always have to ask when you look at your building, is it solid for the next 15 years?
Oh, okay, yeah.
And you can Band-Aid up a building. And when I first work with smaller organizations, when you say, what's your project? And they go, well, it depends on how much money we raise. We want to do the roof, we want to do the kitchen, and if we get enough money, we'll do new windows. I'm going, okay, that's a great home remodeling project. That's not a project that I can present to a bank to say funding, because a bank is looking at, here's my scope of work. And we're going to spend $2 million, and the bank's going to fund 1.5 million of it. So they want to see a scope of work. The thing is, the Federal Home Loan Bank looks at their dollars as the last dollars in. So if you prove you need $1.5 million and your project comes in $200,000 under budget, in their mind, you need $200,000 less of their dollars because they're the last dollars in.
Yeah.
So, and we've run into this a couple times, so the question always becomes, hey, you want to do your project better? What if you improved your brick and mortar so that you lower your operating costs? What if you put a little more beauty into what you're doing, a little more durability? You had light sensors, for example, more insulation, better windows. So there's always ways to harden a building even better.
So on the other side of that, because the side-by-side properties is a vacant lot that we have purchased outright, but we do need a brick and mortar funding to get that up and going. So,
You got big vision, Tia.
yeah,
So we got 3 projects we can do over the next 10 years.
okay.
Yeah.
Sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the challenge for a smaller organization or startup, I'm not sure how long you've been around and what your financials look like, but sometimes the bank looks at a startup like a teenager asking for their first loan, and you might need some help around that. For example, where Randy works, down the road a couple hours is a city called Fort Dodge, and a group of people wanted to start a mission there. And we were able to get the executive director from where Randy is now to be on the board of directors and a couple other board of directors people to do that. And we were able to get them up and off the ground and funded by showing organization capacity greater than what a startup may have. So the funder's a bank, so they want to see, do you have the capacity organization to pull off the project? Do you have lines of credit to finance the construction? Do you have any cash reserves? So they'll look at all of that, and it may be a couple years before we can do something, but we can get you on the right path for what it would take to get a funder behind your project.
Question, and this is probably a quick answer, but it just sounds like this is specifically for the housing itself. So if you're doing a little project, and you said the classrooms wouldn't be covered, let's say maybe renovations on a chapel, or even a distribution center, that sort of thing, that wouldn't be covered for this grant. It's specifically for housing.
So the answer is it depends. Let's take your chapel. Is your chapel a chapel with hard pews, or is it a multi-purpose room? If it's a multi-purpose room being used outside of chapel hours, then it can be included in the project. Because does your house have a rec room? It's what a multi-purpose room is. People have to have room to spread out and sit down. Anything that is in your house, like I said, I have a little closet that's our pantry. It's got a big room, but it's still housing. Where you wash dishes, your laundry rooms, your dining areas, all your hallways. So when we look at a building, usually it's 80% to 90% housing. So, but as far as warehouse and other things, if a warehouse is a food pantry that's integral to that building, then yes, it can be part of the project. So we get into these situations where someone says, Kevin, I got a thrift store, you can't help me with it, can you? I said, well, that depends. You want to have some affordable housing units on the second floor of your thrift store. Now I can go and I can show you your part of the project is the dollars you're putting in the thrift store, and they're putting in the money to build the housing on the top. So we can get kind of creative with this. And I think I want to know what time it is.
10:17.
Okay, and I have till 10:45. I'm probably gonna stop at 10:30 just so that next guy has a little. So how do you maximize the amount of dollars you can get out of this? So let's say you've got it nice because you got separate deeds already. But I've got customers that have combined their deeds, but they really have 4 different buildings in downtown Baltimore that are all connected. Split those deeds into 4 different deeds, we have 4 different projects. So can you do a real estate split? Can you condoize the land? And so, Downtown Rescue Mission in Huntsville, we got them money in their one building, and then they wanted to do another building, so we condoized the land. And then we came back last year and did another condo on another piece. And they're connected, but they're on separate deeds. So you can be connected just on separate deeds. Then if you're really sophisticated, do you want to build your building in 4 pieces over time? That's not necessarily what I would recommend. It gets expensive, but you can do it that way. And then Teen Challenge, they have a lot of rural sites. And a lot of them are kind of big, 100 acres or 70 acres. And so can we split that into different pieces so that we can treat each building as a separate project over time? So that's kind of some of the things we do. The first, I'm trying to think, Tony, what have we done with you guys? Because you guys had 1 million deeds.
Yeah, the main block property was 15, 20 deeds, and we turned them into 4 and built 3 buildings on one of them. We actually had 1 building was already on another. They just kind of made us include it. So we're actually in the process of getting that split. And Incredible Home Blink is actually working with us because to protect us, we moved a lot of our stuff to LLCs. And so that's one of the things we're trying to do. So they're working with us. They've actually let us take 3 that are on the rescue mission, actually put them under the LLC, which we're in control of. So we've done that. The current renovation is all one property. We didn't have to split anything or anything like that. But it's like you said, we've got the money in place. It was just, we ran, I think we were talking on this, Kevin last year, whatever, said, oh, we can get you 1.25 million. And Rob's like, okay, let's do another one. So we did, and we have the money in place. We're going to use that to, like you said, redo certain things. But if we get it, we're going to redo our whole kitchen and make it a little bit more better. I mean, it's 20 years old, and it was the old hotel. We just cut through walls. This way, we can actually do it correctly, make it a lot nicer.
That first renovation was kind of make it work type renovation.
Make it work kind of thing. And we got concrete walls and concrete floors, and there's, all your wiring's on the outside. You don't have to see it. So it's a unique situation. We're getting a new elevator in this one as well. And so, which is dire need. So it's a unique, there's another piece of property we just purchased that if we get, is it Topeka?
Atlanta for you guys.
Yeah, but it's the one where I think we were talking to you, Joy, where
Des Moines.
bought an old grocery store. We were talking about putting like emergency 15, 20 beds. Is that Topeka where they love to do that?
Yeah, Des Moines.
Des Moines,
Yeah.
okay,
Des
yeah.
Moines.
And so Rob's still, we're trying to figure out what to do with the property. So right now it's a storage facility for nonprofits, so we can utilize the tax on its parking. So yeah, it's like I said, we've only missed one, and that was Pittsburgh. That's our first time going to Pittsburgh, first time with another bank. And I think we just didn't have the point criteria, but we already had the money in place to build it. That's our goal. So
It's kind of interesting. We can hit 80 or 90% of the grants that we pursue, but the 10% that get away or the 20% that get away, it's better if they've had 3 or 4 others from us before we have one get away.
yeah, and we have.
Yeah, and we got the first few, so that helped. But we've had a few get away. And sometimes the question is why does projects get away? And so sometimes they get away simply because there's a zoning issue that wasn't ever addressed properly. for example, there's an easement right through the middle of the land that they were gonna put the building on, and that easement still is there. Zoning is another big one. Can't get the zoning.
Yeah. We're in the middle of that right now.
Yeah. And then what I always say about zoning is, if you presume zoning's gonna be no problem, I can guarantee you it's gonna be a problem. I've had people over the years, oh, zoning's no problem, the mayor loves this. The mayor's a politician.
That's right.
The mayor's a politician, and he can love you one day and not love you the next day, or even love you and not love you in consecutive meetings.
At the same time,
Yeah.
Especially on the rezoning, means that they're gonna lose money out from it.
Yeah, because there's a tax thing, yeah. So there can just be some structural issues with projects, or sometimes we just can't get there from here, given the criteria. Or the funding pool, when one year Federal Home Loan Bank of Des Moines created all these ways for tribal Americans projects to get funding. And all of a sudden, all their funding just kind of swept off into that for a year. And then it came back. So there are some nuances where the bank just gets off on a certain kick for a while. And they come back. So this next chart is just to show you the concept that everything flows through a member bank. So you're the nonprofit developer up there. You don't think of yourself as a developer, but you're a developer. And you're creating a project, and the member bank sponsors that, and then it flows down to the Federal Home Loan Bank. And the funds actually will flow from the Federal Home Loan Bank to the member bank, then to you. And of the 11 Federal Home Loan Banks, they all have time requirements on how fast that money has to flow from the member bank to you. And many of them, it's 24 hours, so it's not like the member bank can sit on that for a long time. Mm-hmm. And technically, all our reporting goes to the member bank to the Federal Home Loan Bank. So this is a lot of work for a member bank, and they do it for the community PR, and they also do it for CRA. But also, when you get $1.5 million awarded, your local bank gets to go do a press release if they want. If you're smart, you'll do that, but not right near Christmas, because you don't want to cannibalize your local your seasonal fundraising by the community thinking you got too much money. But you let them do a press release. It's so much easier for them to give away $1.5 million of the Federal Home Loan Bank's money than for them to do that. And there are banks that like to do this kind of stuff. In my community, I can get a bank come behind a project and give it a 1% donation. So if it's $1 million project, give them a $10,000 donation per project. Because where I live, the Federal Home Loan Bank of Indianapolis gets points if the bank has a 1% donation to the project. So we look for member banks that will make a donation that way. And then the games get in. You make a donation, but you do a construction loan, so now you charge 2 points instead of 1 point, so you just made up that 1% donation. There's some gamesmanship in it, so we've learned the games over the years.
I wasn't gonna ask that part of it, but yeah, my brain was going there too.
It's an application. They used to be paper, and they're usually about that thick. An application is like a resume. You're putting your best foot forward. You're not necessarily sharing all your warts. The last time I worked for a corporation, after I was there for a month, they said, well, how much do you know about X? And I said, not as much as I said in the interview. But we're going to be truthful, but we're going to put our best foot forward. And just real quickly, this is us. We're laser focused. I had the benefit in my MBA program of having a guy named Peter Drucker be one of my professors. And Peter Drucker's his entrepreneurship class, he talked about how people always think of innovation as being the next product. But he also said there's this thing called process innovation. If you can take a process of existing pieces and put them together in such a way no one else has done it, sometimes you can add value that the marketplace will pay for. So most capital campaign consultants are trying to take a project and get you all its funding. So they're project specific. We said, what if we just take this one funding source, forget all this other stuff, and know this funding source better than anyone in the country, and then bring it to your project when the timing is right. And this way I'm not competing with anyone else, and we're working together, and we can know this project, this funder, in such a way no one else does. So a lot of consultants will know their local Federal Home Loan Bank, but they won't know all 11. And so when we get a project, we actually score a project out across all 11 Federal Home Loan Banks to see where it's going to fall into best. And we're in front of the Federal Home Loan Banks on a regular basis, and we're administering hundreds of projects with them that are in good standing. So that third line says our average grant award is over $700,000. Last year it was over $1.7 million. With interest rates up, the banks have more money to give away. And guess what? The part of the bank that gives away money, the rest of the bank doesn't like. So if you have more money to give away, they don't let you hire more people to do it. And you're the Federal Home Loan Bank, you gotta live with these projects for 15 years where you don't want to give away 3 times as many projects. So you raise the cap, so you're giving away about the same amount of projects. And you keep your workload even. So when the Federal Home Loan Banks have more money, they'll raise their caps, and when they don't, they'll lower their caps. Right now the caps are quite high, quite generous. I expected Des Moines to lower their cap. After the first time they raised it from $750,000 to $1 million, and the next year to $3 million. I expected them to lower that back down because the scoring, minimum score jumped quite a bit. They kept it at $3 million. We still had 7 projects last year awarded $3 million. We're able to do a lot of good with this source.
So you would say that the interest rate has more correlation with what their cap is over, say, increased cost construction, per se?
Correct. Because they're lending them, they're making about the same number of transactions, they're just more money per transaction, so they got more earnings that they've got to give away. Second of all, the other thing is, we talked about the savings and loan bailout. 20% of their income was going to paying those bonds. Those bonds have been paid off. Now the government is looking at them putting in 20% instead of 10%. And so some of them are voluntarily putting in another 5%. Then they think maybe if we go 5%, they'll leave us alone. So interest rates are up, and there's this pressure to increase the funding. So the funding is up, and it's probably going to stay. It might not stay at $3 million. It might drop back to 2.5 in some of these, but it's going to stay high for a while. And so that's us, Capital for Compassion. We don't just go get you the grant. We administrate it, and we live with it until it's done. We've organized our company as, I call it a for-profit ministry. If we've done our work right, we pay taxes, we're a for-profit company, but if we've done our work right, you'll talk about our ministry to you, rather than us being a good vendor. We're going to build kingdom stuff together. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Any questions?
Well, I'll speak with you after, because I know that we're out of time, so if you don't mind, I'll
Definitely.
take it later.
Definitely. Sounds good. I saw you. Actually, I got to show you this to you. You were on my list here this morning to try to find.
Oh.
Because I'm going, who don't I know that's here? Because Murfreesboro, because we've worked with the National Rescue Mission, we've worked with CARM, you know, we're working all around, we just haven't, how do we know you? I met Randy last night, but he was kind of on my hit list. Grants Pass, I've never met anyone from Grants Pass, but what's the next town north of you there, Kyle?
We got Portland,
No, but I mean, just now we're still in the Highlands.
north of Grand Pass, is it Roseburg?
Roseburg, yeah, Roseburg Rescue Mission
Yeah.
we've worked with.
Yeah.
I just remember it was pouring rain, and all of a sudden I went up and it was dry. That was Roseburg. We didn't get the grants passed, but Roseburg Rescue Mission. So we've
We're
worked,
close.
so we've worked with Seattle's Union Gospel Mission a bunch of times, Portland Rescue Mission, UGM Portland.
Well, we got a project we can talk about.
Excellent, excellent. I think. Any other questions? So I'm going to get out of Jeff's way, and Jeff, remind me to give you this for